The video games industry can be fractious and tribal at the best of times, and that's not just developers themselves, that is the community as well. Most recently, the success of Elden Ring caused several developers to find some form of criticism about that success. But as fractious and tribal as people are within the video games industry, at the very least, they know when it's time to stand together. Hi, I'm Rob, and welcome to Gossip News. Now, many of you will have guessed that my little monologue at the beginning there was about Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. It's not just a devastating human tragedy, it's something that has long-term effects and long-reaching effects in all industries everywhere. And one of the effects of Russia's invasion of Ukraine is that Russia is under the heaviest sanctions in the world now. Now, you might think that doesn't have much to do with video games, but countries around the Eastern European area, Czechoslovakia, Slovakia, Ukraine, Poland, Hungary, they have been on the rise for the last 25 years in terms of video games development and have become a leading force. That whole area has become a leading force in video games development. And what is really nice to see is the number of developers, small and large, the number of publishers, small and large, that have stepped up and said, we are raising money for Ukraine, or we are no longer going to sell our products in Russia. These are things that are actually happening. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire list of all of the companies, all of the developers and publishers who are no longer selling their products in Russia or raising money for Ukraine. GamesIndustry.biz has helpfully compiled a timeline for it, as has Game Informer. I will link the two of them in the description below. But one of the more recent happenings, following the lead of CD Projekt Red and Bloober Team, several major publishers, including Microsoft, Electronic Arts, Activision Blizzard, and Epic Games, have all halted sales of their games, services, and in-game purchases in the Russian market. Take-Two Interactive and Ubisoft have also taken the same stance. In more recent days, Koei Tecmo have donated $500,000 to the non-profit, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and Necrosoft Games have launched their bundle for Ukraine on itch.io. Their aim originally was to raise $1 million for the International Medical Corps and Voices for Children, but they have smashed that target and raised over $2.3 million. A new goal has been set for $4 million, with a little over a week left on that offer. The bundle includes around 1,000 games worth over $6,500, and all proceeds are going to the charities. With a minimum donation of only $10, it's well worth getting. You can donate more if you want. It's all going to a good cause, so please do support this or find some other way to support the Ukrainian people. Moving on to Take-Two, who are facing a class action lawsuit over NBA 2K loot boxes. Take-Two have been accused of unfair, deceptive, and unlawful practices. So what's this all about? Well, back in January, a lawsuit was filed on behalf of a minor and their guardian at the Winnebago County Circuit Court. Now that has been moved to the Illinois Northern District Court last month. The complainant says that loot boxes psychologically distance players from the true financial impact of such purchases, noting that, in the case of minors, these are often paid for by a parent's credit card. It adds that loot boxes are particularly attractive to minors who may not understand the link between virtual currency and real-world spending, or that such purchases are often non-refundable. Now, loot boxes have been a thing. They've been a bit of a thorn in people's sides for many a year now. A number of companies, especially EA, have tried including these surprise mechanics, as EA once described it, within their games in one way or another. FIFA Ultimate Team is one example of it, but the loot boxes in Star Wars Battlefront are another example of it. Here's the thing. Loot boxes are gambling, as far as I'm concerned, and they have no place within video games. They're an extra mechanic that you simply do not need in order to enjoy the game, unless you have locked something behind that particular paywall, some ability, something that is necessary for you to finish the game, or some extra content that is part of the game, but you have a random chance of getting it. That's not the same as an expansion. That's not the same as direct download, paid for DLC or anything like that. But that's something that can happen and probably will happen in the future as these surprise mechanics become ever more prominent. How are they going to become more prominent? Well, Take-Two are facing a lawsuit about it, but EA, they did have a lawsuit about the FIFA loot boxes, and they were fined 10 million euros back in October 2020 by the Court of The Hague, which ruled that FIFA Ultimate Team packs broke Dutch gambling law. The Court of The Hague ordered EA to pay 500,000 euros for every week it did not comply with the court's demand that it pull FIFA packs from its most recent games, up to a maximum overall fine of 10 million euros. At the time, EA said they were going to appeal the decision and did not pull the packs from sale. Unfortunately, today the Dutch Administrative Jurisdiction Division, the country's highest court, announced it had overruled the Hague Court's 2020 judgment and decided EA had not broken the country's gambling laws after all. This new decision is apparently based upon the fact that obtaining and opening packs of Ultimate Team is not an isolated game, it's simply part of a wider game of skill which simply added an element of chance. There's those surprise mechanics. The vast majority of packs are obtainable by and used for game participation. The tradability of packs on the black market is relative. The black market mainly focuses on trading complete accounts rather than individual packs or their contents. The publisher has therefore not violated the Game of Chance Act, and the Gaming Authority should therefore not have imposed a penalty payment on the publisher. I feel like this decision is really off the mark. I wonder if this is one of those occasions where you have people who are making decisions who have looked at simply the evidence of this but haven't sat down and tried to actually play the game. And so they've made what they think is an objective judgment, but it doesn't contain all of the facts. It doesn't contain that player experience, which would inform them of certain ways in which Ultimate Team is marketed and basically hammered into people who play the game, in the same way that Star Wars loot boxes were hammered into people playing Battlefront. Moving on to Babylon's Fall, which is developed by Platinum Games and published by Square Enix. So one might think there'd be a big song and dance about this game, but nope. Total silence. Nobody's really seen trailers of this outside of E3 or something like that, and it launched and had a peak of 874 players on Steam, making it one of the most abysmal launches of a live service game. And this is a game that costs £60 to buy. Some people are saying wait for it to drop to £30. I'm sorry, the only way I would play this game is if it was for free. And here we run into some of the most fundamental problems of live service games. See, live service games are very fast-paced, but they're also designed to keep you playing for as long as possible. And there you run into a quandary. See, fast-paced but keeping you playing as long as possible, the two don't quite mesh. Think about it like this. As an adult man, I want to play a game. I want to immerse myself in the game. I want to enjoy it. So I want something a bit more story-based. I don't want something that's a bit more run and gun, where I basically dive in, shoot everything that moves, dive out, and I may do that with some people or without them. I prefer to do it without them because I prefer single-player games. Not really a big multiplayer fan, unless it's local couch co-op against my friends. And I'm not unique. There are many, many, many people who think exactly the same as me. On the flip side, I don't have the time to be spending all of my time playing one game. So all those hooks in the game that are designed to keep me playing will simply make me angry. So there, two examples of how a live service game doesn't work for me. As an adult man, a working adult man, and I'm the person who's going to be able to spend 60 quid on this because I'm the one who's got excess money, or I did until recent troubled times, to spend on these sorts of things. You see where I'm going with this? Anyway, Babylon's Fall, it's off to a bad start, and I kind of expected it was going to be off to a bad start. Moving on to happier news. Xbox are doing something really, really positive for women in games. They are launching a women's mentorship program. It's a new initiative that's going to connect leaders at Xbox with aspiring industry talent in the form of one-on-one coaching sessions. And I think that is an amazing thing to do. I think it's something that big publishers and big firms within video games really need to follow up on. We need greater representation for women within video games. This is a great way of going about that. Now, at launch, the mentoring will be offered in select markets including US, UK, France, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Japan, and Korea. More countries and details will follow soon. In a blog post about this, Rare executive producer Louise O'Connor stated, "It is our hope that this program generates meaningful engagements with tangible and purposeful actions to help foster career development in the games industry." Xbox are also hosting a panel at GDC, which is going to be made up of female leaders across the company to share their career journeys. Now, this is something really, really positive that Xbox are doing. Please, other companies out there, follow up on this. Follow suit on this. Make video games a more hospitable and better place for women to work in. Okay, our penultimate story, and we're keeping with the slightly upbeat tone here because Square Enix, okay, yeah, we talked about Babylon's Fall, but they've done something really positive, and I really like when video games developers and publishers do positive stuff. It really makes me feel like the industry is worth saving. Square Enix have added 5,500 tracks to YouTube Music and launched their own YouTube Music channel. Now, on YouTube Music, users can search for Square Enix to see all of the albums available under the Square Enix Music artist name. This includes over 60 albums that include soundtracks for the likes of Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Chrono Trigger, and Nier Automata, which has an amazing soundtrack, by the way. As well as that, they've also launched a new YouTube channel called Square Enix Music, which I will link in the description below. This contains playlist links to all of their albums, making them easier to find. Square Enix have also promised to include new bespoke videos based on their music, including interviews with composers. So this is something that I find amazing, and it kind of reminds me of what Riot Games done with their Sessions, although Sessions is more of a Creative Commons thing where you can use the music yourself as long as you are not using it for commercial purposes. This is more of a personal thing, but for all those people who wanted to listen to just how good the music was in Chrono Trigger or in Nier Automata, this is the great opportunity for you to do that. And Nintendo, seriously, take a leaf out of Square Enix's book, put that music onto YouTube for people to listen to, then you won't have people criticizing you all of the time. Anyway, our final story, and it's yet another adaptation of a video game. Amazon are reportedly in negotiations to bring God of War to Prime Video in a live-action TV adaptation, and that's according to a report in Deadline. Now, the series adaptation comes from Expanse creators and executive producers Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby, and the Wheel of Time executive producer and showrunner Rafe Judkins, as well as Sony Pictures Television and PlayStation Productions, which collaborate on all TV series based on PlayStation games. Reps for Sony and Amazon Studios, which likely will co-produce, didn't say anything about this, but I don't know. I reckon they'll be making it, but who could play Kratos? My colleague who hosts Directors Uncut, also known as Rob, he has pitched The Rock as a potential God of War, as a potential Kratos. I would say yeah, but then there's also another buff bald guy, maybe not as massive as The Rock, but still, Vin Diesel is also a potential Kratos, possibly, and he does have the gravelly voice as well. I don't know, could you see Groot as Dad of War? But maybe you need somebody who is more of Dave Bautista's stature. He might be okay to play Kratos. You never know. And finally, in the list of bald, buff people that I know, another former wrestler who's also bald and buff, but I don't see him playing Kratos. I think he's more of an outlier. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Would a Kratos with a southern drawl work? I don't know. Okay, that's your lot for today. Let us know what you thought about all of the stories in today's episode in the comments below. I'll be back again next time on Gossip News or on Impossible Mission, whichever one comes first. Until then, thanks for watching.